Well guys, it's finally time. We're gonna give Daphne the mega palace she's deserved. This was my very first post ever on Instagram, was this tank right after I finished it. So now it's been almost 2 years, so I think it's time to treat Daphne to an incredible new aquascape. I got some really nice pieces of dragonstone and some really good manzanita pieces. So let's get right into it. All right, well, I have to say, rescaping a aquascape is probably one of my favorite things to do in this hobby. It just kind of re-lifts the entire tank, and you can, take what you've learned from your mistakes, from what worked, and you can kind of pull that all together and create a much better scape. So first things first is I'm gonna get all these crazy big pothos taken out here. We're gonna put them in a little bucket, but it's gonna be tangled mess. So yeah, let's start. No easy way to do it, but just begin. So these pothos have been growing in here for, I wanna say at least 8 months or more. And as you can tell, they are a vining plant, so they have just gone wild. So I'm trying my best not to cut any of these branches, because if I make a cut, it's gonna stress out the plant. So obviously if we can avoid that, that's what we're gonna do. But I'm pretty sure we're just gonna end up cutting some of the troublemakers because ain't nobody got time for that. I don't know if this will work, but I'm just gonna try to pull them all out at once. This is why we always put towels down, guys. You gotta put the towels down because when you do stuff like this, it gets a little wet. So yeah, that's the pothos that was standing or growing out of Daphne's 55 gallon. I'd say that's pretty good growth. We'll try to salvage what we can, try to get it growing in the new scape. But yeah, that's a pothos for you. So now that we finally got all the pothos out, we're gonna go ahead and fill up a little tiny bowl with some tank water so we can take all of these plants out, place them in the bowl, and they won't dry out. And so when we're ready to go in and plant, we can just take them right out of our bowl and get them right into that new scape. Shout out to Siche. We got our clip-on microfiber towel, perfect for big projects like today. We're gonna go ahead, clip that onto our belt loop. Whenever we need to dry our hands off, it'll be ready for us whenever we need it. Love it. And pro tip too, guys, when you're pulling out plants from an old scape, there's gonna be algae everywhere, hidden in all the roots and everything. And if you want to get rid of it or help reduce it from going into your new scape, you can take your plants out like this and you can take some Green Water Labs' algae control. You can fill up, I believe you can do a 1-to-1 mixture if it's in a smaller bowl of some water and some algae control. And you can take your plants that have a little bit too much algae on them, dunk it into that bowl, leave it sit there for a couple hours. And what algae control will do is it'll start breaking down any of this algae that's on the plants. So when it goes into the new scape, we have less chances of an algae bloom or just a crazy bad outbreak. So I'm definitely gonna do that later. Well guys, the plants actually took a lot less time than I was anticipating. The pothos came out like a breeze. All of my little plants came out amazingly. And now you can see we're down to the bare bones hardscape. Still looks kind of good and something funny, and I'm sure if you've rescaped any tank, you've experienced what I'm experiencing right now. Halfway through the teardown, you're going in your head like, why am I tearing this down? It's gorgeous. But we have to remember what we're doing for the new scape is gonna be 10 times better. If anything, when you have this feeling, you're like, why am I tearing down my hard work? Be proud that you feel that way. You are proud of your work. And all we're doing is improving it and making it better. And I love it. Wow. That's a nice piece of dragonstone right there. Something too I want to stress to you guys, if you have snails, nerite snails, pond snails, any small creatures or critters, when you're doing a big teardown like this, inspect your hardscape, inspect your plants, because they could be hiding anywhere. And while this is outside of the tank on a towel, it will dry out and it could unfortunately kill any hitchhikers that are on this piece of rock. So what I'm doing is just giving it a quick little inspection, making sure there's no snails on here. And yeah, we're looking good. We got a net. You might be asking, why do I have the net? When you do a massive rescape like this, if you're taking all your substrate out, you want to take your fish out as well and put them in a separate holding tank, put them in a separate 5-gallon bucket with an air stone and a heater, just because when you're doing a full rescape like this, we're gonna disturb almost 2 years of bacteria, poop, gunk, all that stuff's gonna come out into the water column, and we don't want our fish to be in the middle of all of that. So I have a tank set up for Daphne and my white polar parrot. And what we're gonna do with those two guys, we're gonna put them in a different tank. I'm actually gonna leave them in there for about a week to 2 weeks, just because I wanna run some medication through Daphne. I've been noticing just some little weird things going on, and I've never really fully medicated her before. So before we put her into the new scape, I'm just gonna put her in a little hospital tank, make sure she is at top perfect healthy condition. So yeah, that's why we have the net. Let's catch these little guys up. Probably gonna drain some of the tank water into the holding buckets for the mollies, just so the transition doesn't stress them out too much. Let's get into it. And just like that, we have netted and safely put away all of our fish. Now it's time for the really fun part, getting this substrate out and getting a new one put in place. But before we do that, I am gonna make sure all of our little nerite snails get taken out safely and transferred to their holding tanks. And I think there's actually a big old pond snail in here. Look at this guy. He's been vibing for so long. We'll keep him. One last check. We're good to go. Time to get that substrate out of there. I don't have any tips or tricks to getting it out faster or quicker. I just get a big cup like this and I just get to scooping. You know, no simpler way than just starting to get it done. And just like that, we have removed the substrate. You might be thinking, wow, that is really dirty, disgusting, and gross. And I would have to agree with you, but that is what we need. What I'm doing is I'm leaving just about an inch in the back here for our beneficial bacteria layer. What this is going to do is allow this tank to not have that new, fish tank cycling issues. This is going to be all the beneficial bacteria we need, so as soon as I put the new scape in here and fill it up, it'll be instantly balanced and all of our fish can instantly go back in here. And if you want to look in here, I always recommend in all of my scapes is to arch your substrate back towards the back here. So as you can see here, there's practically none in the very, very front, but as you get to the back, it gets lifted up and raised. What that does is it just gives us our depth. So when we put our dragonstones in there, we are good to go. All right, substrate time. We're gonna be using UNS control soil. Been using this a lot in some of my other tanks and it's been working out phenomenally. Something pro tip I wanna let you guys know on. If you look through my tank and some of the other pictures and a little bit here, you can see aqua soil that is literally just everywhere. When I initially set this up, I had no idea that you could get little laundry mesh bags off Amazon to put the soil into to keep this soil locked in place and underneath your substrate as it should be. So right now we're just gonna fill up some bags, probably gonna put like 4 of them along the back wall. And what these bags do is they're very meshy. So what that's gonna do, it's gonna allow water to flow through it and it'll allow the roots to penetrate into here to suck up all those nutrients. I think it's time to lock everything in. I always am very hesitant at this point because once you take your new substrate and you cap everything in, there really is no going back. So let's cut into this first 40-pound bag and get to pouring. Woo! 40 pounds of sand is a little heavy. Just just so you guys can see what we're working with here. We're doing the Carib Sea Supernaturals Jungle River Sand. Don't really know why they called it sand. This is more like a super coarse gravel. Here, we can go under the light here. It's like a super coarse gravel. I think this is gonna match this dragonstone really nicely. Ooh. All right. All right, guys, it's hardscape time. Just like that, it's held up in place. Pro tip, once you sink your rocks into your substrate, if it's still leaning over, find the smallest stone you have or break off one of them and just do what I did here. I literally had, my video guy, Max, thank you Max for holding this up, while I found this little guy and we just tucked it underneath where it was needing that support. And as you can tell, give it the good old tap test, that thing ain't going nowhere. Finished placing all of our dragonstone, and if I'm being honest, it went way smoother than I was anticipating. For some reason, today just might be the day that stones are just coming together how they should. What we did here was just made it so it was, taller in the back, and it slowly, everything was pointing this way, but it was slowly just tapering down in size of stone and the amounts of stones. And honestly, this is just making me really excited. I can't wait to get some water and plants in there and get it going. But if we come over here and check it out, I was really sure that we made a little hiding spot back here for Daphne. She does get a little nervous some days, and she needs a place where she can go and feel like she's not being viewed, she's not being watched. Just gives her a little chill spot, if you may say, to just go out and hang out and have a good time. Now, let's get these wood pieces in there and pull the whole thing together. Pieces of wood can be very complicated. They can be hard to deal with. Something I just recommend is get more than you are anticipating you're gonna need. So when you come across a piece of wood like this guy that just is a troublemaker and it's just not working, you can take it and just throw it, and you don't have to worry about that piece of wood anymore. You can go grab a new piece and keep on keeping on. When you're doing your scape, if you're getting frustrated or you're finding those moments where you're just almost fed up, that means try something else. If the wood is really bothering you and you can't really find the right place for it, try working on some of your stones, or try working on some of your accent details and come back to it later. When you are in this creative flow process, it is a very strong state of mind, being in that flow mind state. And you want to keep that momentum moving. And like I said, if you find something that's frustrating you, just move on, get rid of that piece of wood. I'm gonna go try to find some other pieces of wood, and we're gonna keep having a good time scaping this, because right now I am very excited with how this is coming together. I feel like we're done with the sticks, but I always get greedy when I'm doing my scapes, and I always think more is better. But I'm learning over my years of aquascaping that sometimes less is really more. So I'm still gonna throw some in there, and Max and I are gonna talk about it and see which ones look best. And if they don't look good, I'll take them out. But you never know. If you put that one stick in there that you weren't expecting, it could pull the whole scape together, but it could just make it look like chaos. So just play around, have fun. This is the best part about aquascaping. Put on some music and just start playing with rocks, wood, and plants. That's the best part. We're in nature. So right now we're just gonna take some extra sand, and I'm just filling in all of our kind of open gap spaces, where this is just gonna help lock down the wood, and it's gonna help lock down the stones, and overall it just makes it look more natural and blended in. which I kind of like. I love putting on gloves because it makes me feel all important, especially when you get that little satisfying on there. You might be wondering, why are we putting on gloves for an aquascape? Well, you might have seen some of my rocks and wood structures. They look kind of crazy. And you might be wondering, how does that stay put? Well, I use this glue that is a liquid cyanoacrylate glue, and this is from Bob Smith Industries on Amazon. What this is an extremely powerful liquid super glue. What it does is you take a little tiny piece of paper towel, you fold it up a bunch, and you pour this over it, and what it does is it instantly creates a chemical reaction. You'll hear a little fizzle and a little smoke come up, and this glue turns any type of paper towel or any type of cotton material into a really hard, almost like a plastic piece of rock. So what I do is I get our glue, get your gloves on here, take a little piece of paper towel here. Doesn't have to be a lot, like just a little, and I'm just gonna start folding it as small as I can. You can even fold it hot dog style, hamburger style. You can fold this thing up any way you want. Get a piece of tweezers, hold it like so, get your glue in the other hand, and what we'll do is, let's try this piece right here. So this piece is pretty locked in. It probably does not need this glue point, but it's really easy for you to see how I'm doing this. And basically we would do something like that. I'll move my hand here in a second. So something like that. And what I found is a place where you can push down on the paper towel and the rock, so you can see that it's squeezing that paper towel down. You're gonna wanna grab your super glue here. Important thing is, when you're putting the super glue on, you do not need a lot of it. A little bit goes a long way, and keep this pressure pushed down. So you take this, and there's that little crackle, there's that little smoke. Do not breathe this in. Don't put your head in the tank. I've done it quite a few times, and this is a very spicy smell. The chemicals don't do very well for your nose and lungs there, so just do it in a well-ventilated area, keep the fan on, and just like that, that ain't going nowhere. So we're gonna keep doing all of our glue points here. There's probably gonna be 10 to 15 of them, but I always say glue more because, you know, your fish could knock over one of these rocks. It could crash into the side of the tank. You know, even if it just falls over when you're filling it up, you do not want to do all of this over again. You know, we've just spent, I think we're at almost 3 hours now, and if I filled this up and the whole thing came crumbling down because I didn't do enough glue points, that's all on me, and I would not be a happy camper. So let's get to gluing. I love this. Peaceful, it's all finished. Now all we have to do is let the glue settle. We can fill it up, get all of our equipment back on there. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts. Something that I urge you guys to do is, if you don't know if it's finished or if it needs something a little extra, take out your phone, put it on video mode, and see what it looks like through your camera's eyes, because your camera is really gonna frame the tank for you. You know, your eyes take in so much and everything that's going on. But if you put it on your camera, it condenses it onto your screen for you, and you can really get how this is gonna look. And honestly, guys, I think we're done. The glue is all settled. I think now I just gotta make sure my heater's in, my filter's all good, fill it up, and put some fish back in there. Plant time! So just something that helps me is I like to get my plants all organized and laid down in their groupings. So when I'm going through and planting, I really kind of have an idea how much of each plant species I have. So when I go to fill in an area or just build out a little plant section, I know how much I have to work with. Just got some Java fern here with this tank. I don't have a lot of plants that we're bringing back into this tank just because this wasn't a high-tech planted scape ever. So we just have some real simple Java ferns, some really simple Anubis, some Bacopa, and just some really skinny Vallisneria. Probably what I'm gonna do is, after a couple days, once I see where it may need more plants, I'm gonna head over to Kona and grab a lot more plants for it and just fill it out. But right now, I just wanna see where I can fill in the big eyesores. And so what we can see here with this one is there was that big gap in between the log and the dragonstone, and by putting this Java fern right here, it fills that gap up and makes it look a little bit more natural, like, you know, this piece of wood has grown over that dragonstone and the plants have just worked their way in through the cracks. So we're gonna keep that trend going with the Java fern here. And I kind of like this right here. With Java fern, it doesn't have to be planted into your substrate. All it needs to do is just get wedged in between a rock like that or a piece of wood. You can even glue the Java fern if you'd like. Just keep in mind, don't put a lot of glue. On the Java fern, this is called the rhizome right here, and this is the part that you can glue, but be careful. If you put too much glue on it, it will suffocate the roots, and any new roots that try to grow won't be able to grow through that super glue, so you'll get a little bit of rot on your Java fern, so just a little dab will do ya. The last plants that I want to put in here are going to be this, I think it's called moneywort or bacopa, but I want to plant that with water in the tank, so I'm going to give it a little spray down, and I'm going to get the siphon and start filling this up slowly. Pro tip for new aquascapes, fill them up very gently, because as you can see here with all these rocks and everything, once the water starts building up there, it could be like a landslide just like that. So you want to let it fill up really slowly and let everything kind of settle and lock in. And if you see anything falling, you can jump in as needed, but fingers crossed everything's glued up. Now we just got to fill it. Now on to our pothos. We can't forget about these guys. These are going to be huge for helping us with our nitrates and just extra nutrients that are in the tank. What these pothos do is they just absolutely crush any excess nutrients that's in your tank, whether it be from all the food, whether you put too much fertilizer in, whether you want to outcompete that algae. These pothos will suck up all that excess nutrients. And how we're going to place these in the tank is I'm going to try to put them all around this top, back end corner over here, and I'm going to wrap the vines around these pieces of wood here, so hopefully they'll grow in that little spiral and they'll look like a little pothos tree. Well, that was an absolute blast, guys. This tank came together absolutely perfect. I'm very, very happy with how everything came together. We're going to let this slowly fill up. I'm gonna add some conditioner in there, let the filter run for a little bit, and then we're gonna add the fish back in there. Again, guys, thank you so much for following along on all my videos. It truly means a lot. Seeing all of you fish nerds following along with my scapes truly just makes me wanna just keep doing more and more. And I think, with every scape, we're just getting better and better. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.